Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are here for How I Got This Job, which is part of our new quarterly event series in which we host a notable DePaul alum and learn more about their career path and job search. So today we have Garcia, who graduated from DePaul and founded New Path Construction and Consulting. And he's here to talk with us about how he navigated his job search and answer any questions you may have. So without further ado, I'll let Adam introduce himself and then we'll go through some questions. But as a reminder to all of our students, please feel free to ask any questions that you have throughout the event in the chat, and we'll make sure to address those.
Great. Thank you, Emily. So hi, everybody. I know that this is the way of the world now, is meeting over Zoom. I don't know where all you guys are located, but I'm out in Scottsdale, Arizona at our new office that we had just set up out here. So, you know, I'll be super brief. I mean, you can find out a lot about me online or on our website, and I know there's some articles and things floating around there, but really, I think it's probably most meaningful to let you guys talk and ask questions. You know, as I've done in your shoes in the past as well. So, you know, a quick history. I graduated from DePaul in 2011 now, and I went right onto Wall Street as an investment banker. I know that that's a word that gets thrown around a lot in the business school. It's not as cool as everybody thinks it is. It actually is brutal, but it's a good way to kind of, you know, grind your teeth a little bit. So I did that for 5 years, and I focused on merger and acquisition work. So buying companies, building companies, selling companies, a lot of hostile takeover kind of things, which I tell everybody, every takeover is hostile. So I mean, it's kind of unfair to put the word hostile in front of takeover because I think it's implied. But we did that all over the world. I spent some time in Europe doing these types of deals. I ended up moving from investment banking into a publicly traded business where, again, I focused on the same thing, but now it was internal. So, you know, doing a lot more operations, focusing on driving business forward, and, you know, pushing an actual company through divestitures and M&A and strategy and these types of things. And from that, you know, I had a lot of analyst interaction. So, you know, as you guys know, analysts cover every publicly traded company. Their reports come out, and then those reports in a lot of ways dictate what the stock price does to these companies. And so I was actually on the investor relations side, where I sat across the table from these analysts trying to convince them not to let our stock price drop. So, you know, spent about a year doing that. And then from there, finished my Wall Street career in private equity. So I went into a private equity firm here in Chicago, where I was essentially brought on to help assemble a group of dental companies. And we aggregated dental companies all over the world, and we sold the whole package for a substantial amount of money. And then I actually had equity in that deal. And so I was paid out on my equity. And then I actually was working for another private equity firm, the group that subsequently bought this portfolio company I was working on. And at that moment, I made a decision to leave that world behind and try and do it all myself. Hence New Path Construction. New Path, that name is not a fluke. It's a new path for me. And it was actually meant to be a new path for clients that are in the construction space. So to tell you a little bit about New Path, essentially I was in Manhattan one day having drinks with some friends after we closed this deal, and everybody's kind of talking, trying to figure out, what are we going to do? Are we going to stay in private equity? Are we going to go do things? And I said, you know, I'm going to go try and do something. So I started looking for businesses where basically I didn't care about the tribal operational knowledge. I really just cared about finding an industry that didn't have great business acumen, where we can come in and really batten down the hatches and, you know, tighten up the financial models, the client delivery models, the sales process, the overall client offering. And so construction was actually a pretty simple thing. We had done deals all over the world where, you know, they have to build out a little manufacturing warehouse, and there's all this brain power that happens raising capital for that and finding, you know, the opportunity and designing it, and, you know, all the Six Sigma stuff that goes into that. And then you build it. And then after that, someone has to operate it and pay off the debt and do all these types of things. So that little part where you build it, which is the simplest part of the whole process, actually caused the most problems. And so we identified that. And I tell people today, I'm like, yeah, I couldn't read drawings 5 years ago. I don't tell people I can't read them today still, but I can't. And, we essentially built this business on the notion that we're just going to be better business people than everybody that we compete against. I didn't care about rubbing shoulders and, making people mad, which we did a lot in Chicago because it's a very political arena to play in. So, NewPath has now been around for 5 years. I started it as a pet project while I had another job, which is something that we're going to talk about a lot today, because I think that's important. You have to be able to scale things at a very small level, and that is your test. And then you go for the moon, right? Then you try and take it to the moon. And so fast forward to today, we do about $100 million in volume. We work with companies like Arby's, Starbucks, and CBRE. I'm in Scottsdale because we're doing deals out here in the Arizona market. And, essentially our model now, we prove the concept in Chicago. It was a nice company in Chicago. We're in Scottsdale. We're in the full Arizona market. We're up in all through Michigan, Texas. We've done work in Tennessee. So we're kind of going on this nationwide expansion now, essentially just taking that same model and replicating it over and over again. And so then, on the passive side, I still do passive investments and things like that. I'm invested in Dogecoin, as I'm sure a lot of people on this call might be watching that go to the moon. All my non-competes are gone from Wall Street, so I can do whatever I want on the stock market. And by the way, I'm not giving advice, nor can I give advice on the stock market. But yeah, that's my story. I mean, and just to tell you, to circle it back, another thing I like to talk a lot about is the network that you build in your business career and in your college career. One of the guy who I worked for, who is 1 year older than me, so he was 28 at the time we sold this business, and he ran the full process. He's now a great friend of mine. He's one of my best friends. I'm down here in Scottsdale, and the reason I came down is because he also left the private equity firm and started dental practices. He's not a dentist. He's a business person, worked in private equity with me. And he said, you know what? I like what you did. I'm going to go and do dental practices. And now they're nationwide. They have people everywhere. We're building their dental offices. Him and I hang out. We're going to go grab drinks later tonight. But the network is that important, where it's to a point where I can call people and say, hey, give me this deal. And they'll say, okay, yeah, sure. And it kind of happens. So I'll pause there and answer any questions, or, take this in whichever direction you guys want to go.
Well, that's a great place to start. Yeah, we at Career Center, we're big believers in networking. And just to kind of start at the beginning, I would love to hear a little bit about your experience at DePaul, the network that you have there, and what helped you best prepare for this entrepreneurial lifestyle, just from what you learned at DePaul.
Yeah, so I saw one of the questions you sent over was about what are one of the things I regret? And I think one of the things I regret most is that I really didn't do a good job building a network at DePaul. I talked to maybe 2 or 3 people that I went to college with today. I see people when I go to these alumni events and things like that I kind of know, but I could have done a better job with that. That was one of the, I think, weak points. And knowing what I know today, I would have been much more involved. I was on a different path, right? I mean, the thing that motivated me in the beginning of my career, not that it doesn't now, is, I'm a first generation American, typical story of a lot of DePaul students. So I wanted to make money. I wanted to be able to go buy a suit or buy a car or do the things that you see in the movies, but that weren't even a thing for me growing up. So I was pretty selfishly focused, in the beginning. And I probably shift that around just a little bit. You still need that edge because that's what gets you through. But, I could have done better on the DePaul side specifically.
Yeah, that's great advice. I mean, I think pretty much anyone who left university, we all remember all the events and things that were happening on campus that we wish we would have taken advantage of. So that's great advice. I know that you mentioned you first got your career started in investment banking, and some of that was tied to, wanting to be successful financially. I wanted to hear a little bit about how you landed that first job out of college. What were the steps you took for that?
So again, I mean, network is everything. So, when I wasn't at school or working, I was going to, Chicago-based, career fairs and things like that. I think, I guess people tell me now at the company that I am a salesperson, but I never viewed myself as a salesperson. But that being said, I've sold myself, for the last 10 years. And in my opinion, I sold my way into investment banking. And so there's a couple things. Number one, to get into iBanking or private equity or really anything that's non-wealth management related on Wall Street, there's a few things that are cut and dry. The grades, they have to be there, and I knew that going in, that the grades, if you don't have, that at least, I think the minimum, honestly, and I'm pretty open about this. I know that sometimes people like to dance around it, but the truth of the matter is, if you're not at least at a 3.5, it won't happen. And if it does, you're an anomaly. It just doesn't happen. If you're not close to a 4.0, it probably doesn't happen. So in addition to doing other things, the grades are, a must. Okay. Then when they meet with you, they have to sit down because you work 100-hour weeks. And then I know this because actually when I was in Chicago at B of A, I brought on 2 more DePaul grads. One of them actually is now a senior guy there, which I got to introduce you guys to. His name is Tony Hernandez, but he now lives in Charlotte. He was in New York for a while, lives in Charlotte. He's one of my best friends, stood up in my wedding. And he was the guy that I brought into B of A from DePaul. And so there's a very tight, you could, politically kind of squeeze your way in. A lot of people, frankly, this wasn't my case, but get in because of who their parents are or because they have some family ties. We can't believe that doesn't exist, because it does exist every single day. And frankly, that's what we're all working towards, right? You want to work so hard that when you ask to get a seat at a table at a restaurant, you can have that. And so some people may say it's unfair, but is it unfair if you really worked hard for it? I don't know. That's a different debate. But, to get into banking, I was a wrestler coming in to DePaul. I actually left some scholarship opportunities to wrestle at some state universities because I didn't want to focus on it. My ears were all messed up, my nose was all busted, my fingers were busted, and so in the wrestling community, one of my coaches asked me to come over with some guys to help him move some stuff around his house. So I go to his house, and he's a teacher. He was a teacher, this guy, and he's a wrestling coach. And so I go to his house, and his house is massive. And I'm walking around, I'm like, man, what is this guy doing? This doesn't make any sense. And so we're moving his stuff, and I go, hey, Joel, how is this happening? I know what you do for a living. I don't mean to be rude, but how is this happening? He goes, oh, yeah, my wife is the head honcho around here. I'm like, well, what does she do? And he's like, oh, she's in banking. And I go, oh, can I meet her? I'd love to sit down and talk to her. I'm trying to go to school and I want to learn about this. And I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And so he goes, yeah, sure. So I went over there for dinner one night. She liked me, and she goes, all right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to get your resume in, and you're going to interview for an internship. And I did it at Chase, Goldman Sachs. I think I did Morgan Stanley at the time, and B of A. And she got me into all these different places, because that is a very small group as well. It's a political group. So she got me in. My phone went off in the Chase meeting, so I got thrown out of that place. Don't let your phones go off in your first interviews. The Goldman meeting, the guy got busy and didn't show up, so lost that opportunity. Then I go to B of A, and I did this whole interview, and they actually have you compete with other interns. So there's 3 or 4 people, most of which are from Ivy League schools. Those are the guys that go into those places. And you interview in a room, and they go, why should you get this job over you? Now there's this whole cancel Wall Street culture. I don't know if they can do this stuff anymore, but I just stood up and I said, I cannot lose this opportunity. So I went to town. I said, well, this guy didn't wear a suit, for starters. And, we went through this whole process. And so I got the internship, and they called me and they go, hey, we want to offer you this internship. I go, yes, I'm in, I'll do it. And they go, well, did you want to hear about the pay? I go, oh yeah, sure. What is there pay? I didn't even realize that there'd be pay associated with that. I did the internship, and she pulls me aside and she said, hey, when you do the internship, which I say this to everybody now, you have to be the hardest worker there. You have to be there first every day. You have to leave last. Optics is everything in that position. Don't be crabby, don't whine to your bosses and things like that. You are there as, essentially a person that if they want coffee, go get them coffee. Who cares, right? Who really cares? Do it. And so I did that. I just was there every day, every night. I was there on the weekends. I just focused. And I think it was 12 weeks or 10 weeks or something, however long, summer is. I'm like, for 10 weeks, you can do anything. That's easy. So we did that for 10 weeks. And then as soon as I was, I left that, and I'm like, okay, maybe I want to go to law school. I had some thoughts about that. And I got an offer in September, starting my senior year of college, to come on board full time. And I had 4 days or 5 days to make that decision, came with a signing bonus. And I'm like, holy cow, this is unbelievable. I'm doing it. And that was it. That was how I got into that world. So
Oh,
I guess a lot of luck in certain ways.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of just, happenstance, taking advantage of the situations you're being presented with, as well as, showcasing that drive and that ambition. And I think in the Career Center, a lot of times we talk to students about internships as kind of like extended interviews. So, it's obviously a great professional development opportunity. You're getting a lot of different, exposure to projects, but it's also a way to kind of showcase who you are professionally and your skill set so that you can hopefully land that offer like you did upon graduation. I'm really curious.
And I'll tell you,
oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, I'll tell you, at B of A, I don't know if they still do it this way, but the only slots they have open are for interns. And so the only time a non-intern gets into their analyst program is if they don't like the intern over the summer, and then they have to go hire and recruit somebody else. So there's two things I'll tell you about Wall Street for those that are interested. Number one, you may think you're just talking to, a VP, but if you rub somebody the wrong way, I got hundreds of emails of blacklisting different students and different people that were trying to get in because they were too douchey, right? Coming into that kind of world. And when you get the opportunity to walk in the door, you have to be the most respectful person in the room. And you can't like dangle carrots and, even negotiating salary. Everybody talks about negotiating salary. You don't negotiate your first salary, because the problem is that when I'm sitting across the table hiring somebody, I'm offering you what I'm willing to pay because I want to figure out. And now it's different as you get more senior and you have, skills and things like that. But coming out of college, I mean, you're basically what every other person is when you come out of college, which is somebody who's shown a propensity to learn. And so there's no real tangible skill typically that's coming in that the next person and the next person and the next person doesn't have. So, my advice to students all the time is, just take your first job, go in there. If I had to go back now today and go interview for a job, frankly, what I would do is I'd work for free for 6 months. And I would say, after 6 months, you tell me what you want to pay. And that's because I want to show them and demonstrate value and things like that. Now, granted, I'm in a different situation today, but I think that it's important when you get the opportunity in those communities, make sure you're on time, make sure you're dressed the right way, make sure that you're respectful and you're not, arrogant about the things that you've done, because they're meeting people from Harvard and Stanford and Yale and Cornell. My good friend who's on our website, Thane, listen to this guy's background: Stanford, MIT, and then Northwestern to finish. So those are the type of people you interview with, right? And there's only, let's say there's only, 2,000 of those people every year that graduate in that kind of realm. Well, guess what? There's only, I think, 30 analyst positions at B of A. So, I mean, it is a tight competition. You have to show up in other ways besides the grades, which I already said are a given for that.
Yeah, no, that's important. I think the investment banking path is definitely very competitive. And I also wanted to kind of just draw attention to like the salary negotiation piece. I think this is all very specific to that conversation of job searching and investment banking. There are other industries where that's definitely, a different situation, but I really appreciate the candidness, because I think a lot of students really have, this kind of one track vision of what in finance looks like. And there's so many options within finance. And I think that's also part of what you're here to talk about today. And how to showcase those skills. I'm curious about the like side hustle piece. So I know a lot of people I know, work full time, and they also have like a side project where it's either their own business that they're trying to start, or maybe they're doing, work on the side to kind of work towards something. What was that like for you, juggling the full-time employment? And I know, investment banking, you mentioned, is a really demanding work week. I think at that time when you were doing the side hustle, were you private equity at that time? I'd love to hear just kind of how you balanced the two of those.
Yeah, so I was out of banking at the time. Unfortunately, it's not much better as you go down once you get into private equity, it's, you're kind of doing the same thing in a lot of different ways. And you're also worrying about, investment banking is about closing deals, right? You're focused on closing the deal. And then there's professionals that come in to run these businesses afterwards. Private equity is actually a combination of the two. You have to close deals, but then you actually have to run that deal and then, sell it down the road or whatever the exit strategy is for that company. So yeah, I mean, it's unfortunately what I say is that we all have the same amount of time in this world. And really, it's not I don't have that time, because you look at a guy like Elon Musk and the guy does everything, right? So you have the time. It's more a question of what are you willing to sacrifice to get there. So I think, sacrifice is a big deal. Everybody, the people that I interview, we have staff obviously at New Path, and I don't know, it's 30 people or 40 people or something. So it's nothing crazy, but we do have finance professionals. I brought in a quant from private equity that helps us with our, analysis. I work with him as well. And I would say the thing is, I mean, if you want something, you have to sacrifice for it. I mean, it's very difficult to be able to come home at 5 and watch whatever shows, or go to dinner with your boyfriend or girlfriend every night, or do those types of things, because you are definitely giving something up for that greater purpose. Or like I tell people all the time, you also don't have to do that. I mean, it's like, I always say, it's great. If you're shooting for the moon, then shoot for the moon and go for it. But there's also, as I learned this now, in my now old age, I realized that, there are other things that, there's other things out there, right? So having a work family kind of balance, that's okay too, right? But you have to kind of get comfortable with that on yourself. It's either you want to go to the moon and you want to be, a CEO of something, or you want to be on Wall Street, or, run a company in some sort. And if you want to do that, it's possible. You're going to work really, really, really hard for that. And by the way, once you get to even my position now, it's not like it's any easier now. Now it's actually worse, because now I have this momentum that I have to keep, putting out there. But I love it. I mean, I live for this, and it's a passion. I mean, I would do it for free, frankly. I don't tell anybody that, but I would do it for free because I love it so much.
That's awesome. I think that's really, being that committed to your work, I think, is really what a lot of people want. I'm curious to know, what are some of the biggest trends that you're seeing right now in your industry? I know that with starting this company, you saw a need, so I'd love to hear a little bit about what's happening in construction and consulting, and also as well as what students can do if they're interested in this industry.
So first of all, I'm always hiring people, and I love bringing in people that don't have construction experience. So if anybody on this call is interested in, checking out our world, please shoot me an email, or, go to our website, or go through our people at the Chicago office, and just say that you guys were on this call, because, the construction industry, I think, is going to change here, and it is changing. We are changing the industry. I don't know if you guys have, had a chance to look at our hype videos or our marketing or any of the stuff we put out there. I mean, we're hardcore about the marketing. We're very, out in front. I think, construction, like I said, there's very sophisticated people making decisions on the development side. So the guys that are spending the money, or, running up the investment, or operating these different, Starbucks and, these types of things, they're sophisticated. They're smart business people that are sophisticated. And the issue that they have is that they're having to work with people that not only are not sophisticated, but have a really bad reputation, that precedes them, for trying to steal and trying to cheat and trying to, rob Peter to pay Paul. You hear all these things in this industry. So for us, we just said, we're going to be really good business people. We don't take advantage of anybody. I don't charge more than any other company does. Although we can, there's things we do for free with our clients. So I see the industry continuing to grow, because people are going to keep, entrepreneurship is it's a very cool thing, right? I mean, I kind of knew that this is what I wanted to do at some point, but it's a very cool thing, because the people that are entrepreneurs, I mean, they just have a different personality, right? And I love hanging out with those people. I love hanging out with the guys and girls that are starting businesses, because they're going to make it happen. I mean, if they have $0, they're going to make it happen. And so that's why I believe so deeply in construction, because construction is a byproduct of innovation, right? Now, there's there's tactical things like, for example, the commodity market is insane right now. So steel prices and lumber prices, some of the tariffs that were in place, were a challenge as far as importing steel. Amazon's delivery service, essentially they went out and they sourced all the steel in the market. And so now people like me, who maybe are only buying $30 million of steel a year, that's a drop in the bucket compared to what Amazon buys every year. So we can't get it until December. So then I have to sit with our estimators and our engineers and say, okay, what can we use instead of steel? And, again, I take the approach of simple is better. You'll hear me say this all the time. I tell my team this, they hate it, I think, but I always say that don't come up with a Star Wars solution to a Flintstones problem. And essentially the problems are so simple. Why are we trying to over-engineer this? We don't need to have some massive financial model. I can tell you we can't get steel. So now let's move past all that and let's move into, what can we do instead of that? So I try and keep everything real simple. And, there's tactical things in this business, just like there is in any business. There's labor shortages. People don't think that, construction is a sexy business because business people want to be, on Wall Street or working in corporate finance, or doing those types of things. But construction is actually pretty awesome. And this is a sales pitch, I guess, but construction is actually pretty awesome because, the stuff that you're doing in your mind that you then put into a model, you can actually drive by it and see it on the street, being built. And, people put a lot of trust in us in the deals that we do, at least, because typically they're coming to us from a place of, they've had terrible experiences with a builder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's, I think, a great way to kind of think about like showcasing the value of your hard work and being able to see that tangibly. Like, that's super cool. I would love to hear like what you look for in candidates that join your team at New Path, and how would you describe like the culture there?
Yeah, it's funny. So there's actually this article that's coming out. I think it's either today or sometime this week with a magazine called Construction in Focus. They spotlighted us, and I had this interview, which I didn't realize the whole thing was going to be transcribed on paper. So there's things I said that I probably shouldn't, or wish I didn't say, but that's water under the bridge, I guess, at this point. But they asked that exact same question. What do we look for? And honestly, to be totally honest with you, yeah, do I like to see good grades from business people coming in? I do, but I'm really looking for grind more than anything. In fact, I don't even care if people have a college education. I have an affinity for DePaul. So if ever I see a DePaul person come through, I'm always meeting with that person. But other than that, the grind is everything for me. If you're coming to work for me, right? So here's what I would recommend. If you can get into iBanking, probably not private equity because typically they want you to have iBanking experience. But if you can get into iBanking or management consulting, which again, typically they want an MBA, but if you can get into those fields, that's way better than coming to a company like mine. It's way better. And you should do it 10 times out of 10. But if you can't get into that, or you don't want to, for whatever reason, our type of company is the perfect place, right? I look for companies that, can show you some growth. I think that when I look at new employees, it's all about the grind. And here's the problem is everybody tells you that they're willing to grind. Everybody says it on their interviews. But then, 5 o'clock rolls around and they're sitting watching the clock, the computer closes and they're gone. And that's okay. We need those people as well. But if you want to make an impact, going to a smaller company and being the star of the show, you're a part of the package then. You're part of the growth. You're part of these cool things that we're doing. The guy that's down here now, I'll actually tell you guys a story. He didn't go to college, and he has grown to be my number 2 guy. He's making a lot of money, well into the 6-figure, salary mark for a person that, again, didn't go to school. He started in the trades, and I've actually groomed him over he was my first employee ever, by the way. At New Path, and I groomed him into a business person, right? I taught him finance, I taught him these things. And today my biggest challenge is I have clients, every client wants him to be their guy, right? And I'm like, well, I can't replicate him, and I can't, have him do a million things because then they'll all go bad. But it was all grind. The guy works so hard. He does unbelievable things for the company, and he's down here with me now. We're here every week right now, which is it's tough if you're not used to that travel schedule. It's tough, but the grind is really what got him to where he's at today.
That's great. I'm also curious too about what it's like to be a CEO. What's a myth that you hear often of what it's like to be a CEO, and what's a truth behind it? What are some things that you see as being kind of a false portrayal of that, and what do you see as being authentic?
Yeah, I mean, now with our size, I mean, we have a board and we have, leadership teams and things like that. So, a lot of it is it's kind of like being the president, right? Like you have some power, but it's not like the power that people think you have, right? Because if you're smart, you're taking guidance from your team and you're listening to your team. But yeah, I would say, being a CEO is you deal with 90% of your day is filled with the bad. It's filled with fixing problems and fixing things. I don't get the calls from clients when they're really happy. Like after we built something great for them, they don't call me and say, Adam, wow, man, that was so cool. Thank you so much. Love to see that. Let's go hang out. I get the calls of like, hey, you guys didn't show up today, or hey, this went really bad, or hey, I don't know what to do. This is my issue. This is my financing problem. It's problem after problem after problem after problem. So that can get a little wearing, at times. And then the other thing too is, the political piece as well. There's things that I think, and there's things that, I think I'm more direct than most CEOs in my position. But there's certain things that I can't be direct about. There's certain things, your personal life is impacted. So I can't share certain things on, social media. I can't dress a certain way. There's when I travel, there's protocols for us, like for the way I travel and all this kind of stuff. So there's things that, and again, I'm not like the CEO of a Fortune 500. I'm sure that that's insane, but as the CEO of a company where people are following you and they're tracking your progress, you're under the microscope all the time, and the biggest challenge to being a CEO is the employee, engagement. You want to be close with your employees, you want to be, friends with them, but there's employees that we have, for example, that I haven't met yet personally. And so, it's a tough balance. And then, letting people go is one of the biggest challenges in business. It's people always say like, oh yeah, I could do it. It's great. It is tough. And I've gone, when I was at a PE firm, I had to shut down a company in Long Island. And we had to let go of 100 or 200, 300 people or something all in one day. And it was on Christmas, or it was near Christmas. Their whole family was there. Santa Claus was there. It was like a whole thing. And those people didn't deserve to lose their jobs. And by the way, we only have so much time, right? So I'm sitting in that room, just boom, 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 letting people go. So those people didn't deserve to lose their jobs. And I'm a bad guy, right? Because then I'm the bad guy that goes there. I'm just kind of on a puppet string while I'm out there. So that was kind of one of the turning points for me in private equity. But now, I had a guy that worked for me for 1 month and he's gone now. I mean, I let him go last week. And for me, it's now really simple. If, I've had to let go of people who don't deserve to lose their job. So if you deserve to lose your job, that'll be the easiest thing that we do that day is get rid of you, right? Because then there's other people and employees and their families that depend on, as a CEO, they all depend on you to make great decisions, right? If you feel bad and so you don't want to let somebody go, you're letting down the people that are depending on you to make those tough calls. So yeah, there's a lot of stress, in the world, in the life of a CEO, that's for sure.
Yeah, definitely sounds like it. Curious too, how the pandemic affected both your role as well as your industry. What are some things that kind of happened as a result of the pandemic, both on an individual level as well as in the construction and consulting industry?
Yeah. So, I mean, the pandemic, obviously everybody's impacted by the pandemic. We kind of had a blessing I guess it's a blessing and a curse, but, in Chicago, Pritzker shut down everything, but then he actually left construction open. So it was great at first. You're like, okay, cool, we can work. But then you're like, wait a minute, what's my legal liability here, right? We're open and that's great, conceptually, but what about all the people that are afraid to go to work? And what about the job sites? So we had to dive in and pioneer, we're taking the CDC guidelines. We're trying to, the other thing with being a CEO is everything is legal. I mean, everything is legal. You can't say this. If you say this, make sure you say, that you're not qualified to give this advice, right? Like my comment on Dogecoin. There's things that you're just trained to say. because you have to, because everybody, there's this notion that, the higher you are, the better target you are for anybody or for anything, especially in today's day and age. The last thing I want to do is give a bunch of employees COVID unintentionally and then be seen as a bad company, because look at the companies today that are seen as, bad companies. They get into a lot of trouble. So there's a lot of, the pandemic was scary for us in numerous ways. What we ended up doing is we just implemented all as safety protocols would come out, we would just implement them. It cost us money, but it was the right thing to do. So we implemented a bunch of those. On our job sites, we have sanitizing stations, we have hand wash stations. We did do social distancing. We had guys for a while doing temp checks at the door to come into the job site. If we learned that somebody was in contact, we sent all these notices and things out. And if we learned somebody was in contact, we would shut down the site, have it fully sanitized. And then we had to start sanitizing our office. And then what I did actually, because things slowed down for a little bit, is I repurposed our team and created a group called New Path Sanitization. And we actually launched a sanitization brand within 15 days of everything being shut down. So that kind of speaks to when you guys have the knowledge and the business knowledge that you're getting right now, it's great. I mean, you're taught to think differently. And one of the things I love about DePaul is, it's not just classroom learning. It's kind of like you're immersed in this culture. You get to talk to, business professionals and things like that. And so, learning to be nimble is very, very important. And we were nimble. We launched a business within 15 days of this happening, repurposed. We didn't fire one person. We didn't lose any staff. And we sanitized, we started sanitizing things.
Yeah, everything, you're right. Every industry was really impacted by the pandemic, but that's great that Pritzker, there was able to be a little bit of workaround to keep everything moving.
Yep.
I would love to know what's something you wish you would have known before starting this company, and what's like your number one piece of advice that you have for students who are interested in starting their own business one day?
Yeah, I mean, I would say what I would tell students is you're never going to get the plan. I guess let me start with that one. You're never going to get the plan dialed in. You can sit here for days and weeks and months and then years coming up with this great plan, but there is no better substitute for just letting the flame ignite. And if it goes out, and you do something else and you just keep doing that, right? So I see a lot of students and frankly, people that want me to invest in their businesses that come to me and they're talking about their plan and how dialed in it is and all this. And I go, okay, so what have you done so far? What kind of sales have you done? Well, we really don't have sales yet. And I go, so what have you been doing for the last 5 years? Well, we just want to perfect this. Well, the answer is it's not perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You got to let the water flow so you can see where the cracks are and you can see where the holes are. You got to let this happen. Now you have too much infrastructure. And so it's going to be very difficult to start. So I tell people, look, if you want to start something, just do it. You're really, again, people think that you're risking so much, but really are you though? I mean, to go and start a business, there's a couple outcomes that can happen when you go and you become let's say that, everybody's in the same boat that I'm in, where you don't have, some sort of pension fund or inheritance to fall back on. It's a pretty simple solution, right? You're either going to work 5 days to have 2 days to yourself every week for the rest of your life for the next 40 or 50 or 60 years, or you're not, right? It's going to fall in one of those two categories. And so why not give it a couple shots? And I will tell you, when you're younger, it is a lot easier to take those shots, in your 20s, taking shots is that's the easiest thing in the world, right? And so I would just say, I mean, it's so simple and it sounds stupid, I guess, but my advice to people who want to start a business is do it. Start it and just see what happens. Throw something online. Who cares? People are definitely going to shoot it down. And, statistically, it probably won't work, right? But you're just going to keep doing it. And then eventually those statistics are going to play in your favor and it'll work out. Something will work out, or you're going to meet somebody, or you're going to learn something. But one of the best lessons in the business community is failure. I've learned a lot more. The deals that I've seen that have gone bad, I've actually learned a ton from those. And so, yeah, and then once you take the first risk, it gets easier and easier. And I guess looking back on it, again, I think the network, we talked a lot about the network. I wish I realized how important that network was when I was 18, 19, 20 years old at DePaul, because that's all I would have been doing is just, being with these people and hanging out with my classmates and, going to every game and going to all these things just to build that network. I would have focused more on that. Now it's good. We were able to kind of course correct that, but yeah, that's one of the things I would have done differently.
Yeah, that's great advice. I also want to make sure I open up the questions to any students on the call, but in the meantime as well, I wanted to ask, what are some examples of like the roles that you have open at New Path, and how can students best connect with you if they're interested in the company?
Yeah, so we're hiring project managers, people that'll actually run day-to-day construction projects. We're hiring what we're calling a front desk person, but really that's kind of like that. I'm viewing that as kind of the analyst position, where we would bring someone in and I'd learn about their skills. Are they a marketing person? Are they a finance person? And yeah, they would sit at the front desk, but they would be, ingrained in some of the other stuff that we're doing. A lot of the people that I like to hire are people that, can wear more than one hat. There's some people, but a lot of people like my what do we call him now? Client experience associate. He's a salesperson, and he basically throws parties for our clients, and he's got the best job in the world, in my opinion. But he also manages our signage on all of our jobs. He also takes care of our marketing. And I should throw that plug out there. We actually just partnered with Oscar Mike, who's a veteran. That's a veteran-based nonprofit. And so we did a partnership, and they designed really cool shirts that we're now selling and donating all the proceeds back. He kind of does that kind of stuff. So yeah, to get in touch, and then, we said project coordinator. We're always looking for, the front desk. We're also looking for a project coordinator, which is kind of another, analyst style role, but it's focused on construction, more of the tactical, like you'll learn construction, and eventually your growth path will likely be into the construction field. So those are just a few of the things that we have open. And to find us, go on our website. It's super easy. Get my LinkedIn. I don't know, Emily, does everybody have my email on here?
I'm happy to share that with them if you're comfortable with that.
Yeah, I'm fine. Yeah, share my email. You guys can email me anytime. If you guys are ever looking for anything. And look, the other thing is to reach out to me. Those of you that want to get into other parts of the world, again, I have a lot of friends and contacts in these places. So I'm happy to, put you guys in front of people, and hopefully help, drive some opportunities for you guys.
Awesome. Well, I'll open that up to any students who have questions. Please feel free to put those in the chat, or you can always unmute and ask the question live if you prefer. But in the meantime, I'm going to launch a quick poll. Okay. But yeah, Adam, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Of course. It's good to see everybody. Are you guys going to be going back? When do you guys think you'll be going back to the classroom?
We actually just talked about it today in our meeting, and it seems like the summer we're going to be phasing back in. I've heard that DePaul is going to do about 75% of their classes on campus in the fall.
Cool.
So
that's great.
Yeah, it's exciting, but like a little apprehensive.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. Going to meetings now. You go to meetings now, and it's like, do you shake hands? Do you bow? Do you high five? Yeah. We just kind of like take people's leads, Yeah, I don't know. It's odd for sure.
Yeah, we were doing like the elbow. We had a couple recruiting events in mid-March last year. So we got into that, like the elbow kind of shake. We had hand sanitizer as a favor because approaching like COVID crazy times. And yeah, it's crazy to think that it's been like a year and a half now almost, or approaching that.
I know.
Get back in the office. Yeah.
I know it is. It's insane. I will tell you guys too, if you ever do go to Arizona, I've never seen more scorpions than when we pulled up one of these job sites out here. So I was roaming around there yesterday, and I look at this guy and I'm like, are these things like trained, or should we be getting off this job site? Because this thing will definitely penetrate the shoes that I have on. So yeah, the scorpions are a real deal out here in Arizona. But I just want to throw that out there.
That is, yeah, that sounds scary. Awesome.
No questions from anybody? You got your careers figured out? That's good. That's good. I'll tell you guys, I mean, when you get out there and you start looking, the other thing that I'll tell everybody on the call is that nothing that you do is permanent. So, you think that you're making this like crazy monumental decision, and you think that every time, every year. I still think it today, and then I look back 2 months later and I'm like, wow, that really wasn't that big of a decision. But in business and when you go out into your careers, you're making a decision. And look, I don't advocate for job hopping and doing all that kind of stuff. But if you're doing something and you really don't like it, you just stop doing it. You move on and you can stop doing it. And in today's day and age, I mean, the resumes that I see, and I talk to my friends that run these PE firms and that are at these investment banks. Everybody is trying out different things. So everybody's trying to figure out what they want to do. So it seems like a lot of stress, and it is a lot of stress to make these kinds of decisions. But as long as it's pushing your path forward, maybe it's not the best money, or maybe you don't love your manager, or maybe you don't love the location, or there was something else you wanted more. That's all going to happen with almost every decision you make. But I tell people, if you just keep pushing forward and you're just pushing in the right direction. Robert Kiyosaki, who wrote Rich Dad Poor Dad, I know everybody talks about that book, but one of the things that I have written all over my notebooks, all over my walls is in the beginning, when you start your career, it's work to learn, not to earn. So put yourself in the rooms where big decisions are being made, and you'll learn just as much from that. Who cares, if you're getting paid, $5,000 less than what you would have made at the last place, but you're in the room with the CEO of a big company, or an investment bank or a private equity firm or something. That's what's going to set you up for success. And again, every decision, it feels heavy on you guys now. I know that because I've been there. You get to the end of college and it's like, this is great. I'm at the end of college now. Everybody's expecting me to do something. My family's expecting me. There's all this pressure that kind of comes on, but there's really, it's tough to make a bad decision, going out and starting your first job. And you're going to keep growing every day, every week, every year, while you're going through that process. And if you want to start a business, give it a shot. We talked a little bit about that, Emily, but the scale thing, I know we never came back to that. Mm-hmm. If you start a business, I meet so many people that have these businesses that they've been losing money in for so long. And look, sometimes that works, like in big tech, your Facebook or something. Great. We've all heard those stories, and that's different because it's viewership and there is something tangible that you're getting out of that. But, if you're running a pen distribution company, and you're not making money, you got to figure that out. So you can scale these little things from your house, and from your garage and with your friends and things like that. And, you can experiment that way. You can put some things out there that way. A website these days is so cheap to create, and that gives you a lot of information. So yeah, I would say if you're going to start a business, just start taking that first step, to get it out there. And if you guys ever want to bounce any business ideas off of me, feel free to reach out for that as well.
Awesome. And just a quick plug for DePaul stuff. We also have the Coleman Entrepreneurship Center as well, which is a really great resource. So definitely making sure to take advantage of that. They have multiple events throughout the year where you can pitch your business idea or pitch some sort of case competition solution that can really be a great professional development step. So definitely recommend that.
Yeah, Emily, you guys do a really good job on that. I don't think I've ever been to an event there, but I had one of my mentors was Professor Murphy, who used to be with you guys, and now he's at UAB. So he's actually a friend of mine. I travel to see him sometimes, and we text and talk all the time. He's actually helped me a lot on my journey. And he actually worked with my cousin down in the University of Alabama. So yeah, he's a great guy, and the things that you guys throw out of that center is just great. I love that, and that's one thing I have to get more involved in too. But you guys should definitely take advantage of that while you're there, because that's another thing I just didn't realize how awesome it was when I was a student. But man, is it cool.
Yeah, I know. I'm excited to get back to on-campus events and on campus resources. But yeah, right now we've been able to let all the Career Center events have been virtual. And I know Coleman has been doing virtual stuff as well. So nothing's stopped,
Yeah.
just shifted to Zoom.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Yeah, and then do you guys still do the investor pitch over there as well? Like where you bring in investors that can invest in these ideas?
Yes, I think Kaylin might know a little bit more about that.
Yeah, it still happens once a year. It's part of that pitch competition in which students are. So it's pretty regular since it happens once a year, but I wouldn't say that it's super well known. For the students that are part of Coleman, they definitely get some pretty cool opportunities through that. So great program.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. It is a good program. And DePaul, you'll be surprised at how many people from DePaul are out in the, finance world and the business community. I mean, it is surprising to me. I meet people every day that I'm like, you went to DePaul too? That's crazy. But yeah, everybody, I feel like a lot of people in these executive positions, especially in Chicago, went to DePaul, and it's really cool. It's a really good opportunity for all you guys.
Yeah. If you're ever in doubt of like if a alumni is at a certain company from DePaul, just go into the LinkedIn alumni search and you'll be able to find a bunch of folks who work at all those different companies. So if you have a company in mind, you can just search that in LinkedIn and you'll be able to see the DePaul alum. And it's always a great way to kind of do that initial outreach.
Yeah, and actually it's funny because if you do that and you reach out to one of those people, typically they'll put you in front of somebody that'll recruit you. Because I don't know, everybody that I've talked to from DePaul is pretty great. So yeah, I think that's a great idea, Emily. And actually I tell my salespeople to do the same thing. They all go to different schools, and I'm like, go figure out who went to your school that does something relevant to what we do, and call them up, and see what's going on. That's a great idea. You can run my entire sales staff, Emily. You just figured it all out.
Well, I'm glad career coaching has like a transferable skill to sales too.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, Emily, I know we have just a couple minutes left. Were there any other, you sent over the list of questions. Were there any others that you wanted me to just hit on before we jump off here?
Yeah, I think we did a great job kind of covering most of them. So I think there were some that were a little bit redundant, but yeah, I think we've kind of addressed all of them. But if there are other questions, again, we have a few minutes. You can feel free to put those in the chat, but if not, I hope everyone has a great evening. And thanks again to Adam for speaking with us. We'll be sharing this out with anyone who registered that was not able to attend. And Adam, I'll share out New Path as well and the examples of opportunities available so students know they can follow up with you. But
cool.
Happy to have you today.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. It's been great, and I always love watching, where you guys are all at. You guys are all at the best part of your lives, because the whole ride that you're about to experience it's the best. I mean, and it sounds so cliche, but you think that you're aiming for this one goal, and then your goals just will keep getting bigger. You're never gonna do it and be like, oh great, I did it, I'm done. You kind of do it, and then you're like, oh wow, there's all these other cool things I should be doing. And you kind of where you guys are at is fun. If I knew it would turn out the way it did today, I would go back in a heartbeat. Being, 21 years old, coming out of school, because you guys are in a really cool spot. And you mentioned, Emily, one of the things, I just looked at your email. You asked what professional organizations people should get involved in. I will tell you guys, the biggest weakness that I've seen, whether it was my Wall Street career or what I do today, or the businesses that I invest in, is people's capability to do Excel, like real Excel modeling. A. B is writing. Writing for your, ancient Catholicism course is different than, when you come in to a business setting. So learn how to write emails, because, I mean, for me, I'm a very anal person, as you'll come to know, and you may already have figured out. But the emails, when I get bad emails, it's the worst thing in the world, and you can set yourself apart pretty quickly. And then the last thing that I think that everybody should do is a Toastmasters program. Before you graduate, You should do a Toastmasters program. There's something to be said for being comfortable standing up in front of a room of 30 people or 100 people, whatever that is, and just delivering the facts that you want to deliver. I get involved in Toastmasters. They do things like, obviously you're speaking, but the good ones, they'll teach you how to dress. They'll tell you, how your appearance should be, to take care of yourself. And, when you come into a place, I always say, control the things that you can control: writing, reading, presenting, the way you carry yourself. These are all things that you can control. And I'm telling you guys, it'll make a world of difference. And you could be the worst person at your job. If you're better than everybody else when it comes to the way you write and the way you interact with people, and your confidence level, you guys are going to skyrocket, into the next level.
That's great advice. My first boss actually told me the same thing with Toastmasters, and it's, usually it's a free organization that you can get involved with. I think DePaul does have a chapter.
I thought it did. Yeah.
Yeah. And the other piece that you recommended, the Excel piece, I wanted to also plug. The Career Center has partnered with another DePaul alum and the School of Accountancy to lead a few different trainings on Microsoft Excel. So keep an eye out for that. That'll be a skills lab, and that information's on Handshake. So we had one this past summer. I think they're doing one again in the spring quarter. So keep an eye out for that, because that's a really great resource. And then also DePaul does have free access to LinkedIn Learning. So you can take a couple trainings in Excel if you're a little rusty and you wanted to do that on your own time. That's a free resource as a student that, I wish I had as a student. I don't think the technology was there when I was in school, but yeah, it's a great, great service.
Great. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
I appreciate it, Emily.
Thank you. Got some really nice comments from the students. So thanks again, Adam. And thank you all for coming. We'll see you at the next one.
See ya. Bye.
All right. Bye.